Today's best love story is Puss in Boots, adapted by Sharon Cronk Raby, illustrated by Julius and Victoria Lisi. Puss was a smart cat. When his master, a farmer, was not too old to care for him, Puss went to talk to the farmer's son. "I am looking for a new home," Puss told the son. "I have been very loyal to your father. Now I want to be loyal to you." The son did not know if he wanted a cat. He did not have very much money, and he didn't know if he could take care of Puss as well as his father had. The son told Puss that he would have to earn his keep. Puss gladly agreed. "I will work very hard for you," Puss said. "I am a smart cat and a good hunter, too." "I could use a strong hunter," the son said. "May I have a pair of boots, please?" Puss asked. "Boots?" asked the son. He had never heard of a cat wearing boots. "Oh, yes," said Puss. "Hunters need boots." "Very well," said the son. The next day, Puss had a new pair of boots. He was very happy. He had a plan. Puss would make his new master very proud. Puss knew the king liked rabbits and partridges. He also knew no one else was having any luck capturing such treasures for the king's feasts, not even the greatest hunters. Puss was a good hunter, and he had caught many mice on the farm. He knew that he would easily be able to catch rabbits and partridges for the king, especially in his boots. Puss set out into the woods. He was able to catch many rabbits and many partridges that he placed into his sack and carried to the king. When Puss presented these items as gifts to the king, instead of saying they were from the son of a farmer, he said they were presents from a duke, the Duke of Carabas. The king was delighted. At first, people could not believe that a cat wearing boots was allowed in the palace. But then they heard about the wonderful gifts the cat presented to the king on behalf of the duke. Everyone began to talk about the Duke of Carabas. Everyone was curious to learn more about him. Each day, Puss brought gifts to the king. Each day, the king was more and more happy. "What lovely rabbits," the king said. "What beautiful birds," he cheered. "What perfect presents," he shouted. "I am glad you like them," Puss said. "The Duke is a fantastic hunter," the king said. "I would like to meet him." "He is a very smart man," Puss said. The king called to his men. "Tomorrow we will visit the Duke," he said. The next day, the king's men, and the king's daughter rode their carriage out to the country to find the Duke. Everyone was anxious to meet him. Puss knew they would be driving past the river. Puss asked the farmer's son to come with him. The son followed Puss to the river. Then Puss asked him to jump into the river. When he refused, Puss gently pushed him into the water. "I'll explain later, sir," Puss whispered. As the carriage approached, Puss shouted, "Help! The Duke of Carabas is drowning! Thieves robbed him and pushed him in the river!" The king's men stopped and came to the rescue. The king instantly recognized the Puss in Boots. The farmer's son felt like a fool. He thought his cat was smart, but he had gotten him into trouble with the king. However, the king was happy to help the Duke, who had provided him with so many wonderful gifts. "The Duke is very wet," the king said to his men. "Please go get new clothes for him." The king turned to the Duke. "Will you sit with my daughter and me in the carriage?" The princess was very happy. She liked the Duke very much. The farmer's son was confused. He did not know why people thought he was a duke. Puss smiled. He was a very smart cat. The king's men returned with beautiful new clothes for the Duke. While the king was busy with the son, a man he thought to be a duke, Puss, who was a very smart cat, continued on with his plan. Puss ran ahead of the carriage where he found some farmhands in a field. "Do you want the king to be pleased with you?" Puss asked the men. "Yes," they answered at once. "Good," said Puss. "When the king asks you who owns these fields, you must tell him the Duke of Carabas does. That will make everyone happy." The farmhands wanted to make the king happy, so they agreed. Puss continued down the road. He gave these same instructions to everyone he met. Puss wanted the king to think his master was very rich and successful. This was all part of his plan. The king's carriage came to the field. Puss hid behind the corn. The farmhands stopped working to wave to their king. "Hello," said the king. "Who owns this wonderful land?" The people wanted to make the king happy. "The Duke owns this land," they said. The king's carriage came to the next field. Again, the people waved. "Hello," the king said. "Who owns this wonderful land?" "The Duke of Carabas owns this land," the people said. Puss, who was a very smart cat, ran ahead to a large castle that belonged to a big, mean giant. It was the giant who really owned the land. Puss bravely knocked on the door of the castle. "Who are you?" roared the big, mean giant. "I have never seen a cat with boots." "Sir," Puss said, "I have heard of your great talents. I would like to see some of your tricks." The giant was very grumpy, but he was also very proud of his tricks. "I know many tricks," the giant said. "Can you turn yourself into a lion?" Puss asked. "I'd like to see it." The giant turned himself into a big, angry lion. Puss pretended to be very frightened. "What a wonderful trick," said Puss. "I liked that trick, but can you turn yourself into a small animal too?" The giant smiled. These were not difficult tricks for a giant. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned himself into a tiny mouse. Puss, who was a very smart cat, quickly ate him. The farmer's son would now have all the possessions of a very rich man. The king's carriage came to the castle. "Who owns this big castle?" asked the king. "My master, the Duke," Puss said. "Won't you all come in for a feast?" "You are very rich," the king said. "I am?" said the farmer's son. "You are," said Puss. "How did you get so rich?" asked the king. "I have a very smart friend," said the Duke.